by your side through all your ups and downs.
And when I got involved in my gambling, even though I wasn't hiding it, the casino is a very public thing, but when I talked about that, that seemed to be something that people couldn't relate to as far as being a part of my life.
Well, I see you out there upsetting my act. I said, what? He said, well, you're giving it a little hard time, right? I said, not that I know of.
What did that mean?
That meant that we were supposed to be doing as well as we were doing.
Why did Gladys Knight have such a hard time in her life? Did you know she went through a miscarriage when she was just 16 years old? How did this tragedy affect her? What other sad moments has she faced? Gladys Knight is known for her amazing music, but her personal life hasn't always been easy. Let's take a closer look at the tough times she had to face.
And we kind of grew together, and he did have that music right here and right here.
Gladys Knight is a highly decorated singer throughout her career. However, her remarkable career was accompanied by a tragic story that some people were unaware of. Born on May 28, 1944, in Atlanta, Georgia, her parents were Merrill Woodlow Knight and Sarah Elizabeth. She grew up in a loving family with one sister named Brenda and two brothers, Merrill Jr., who everyone called Bubba, and David. Music was a big part of their family life. Her parents were very active in the church choir, which inspired Gladys to start singing when she was just a little girl. By the time she was 4 years old, she was already singing at Mount Moriah Baptist Church.
How old were you when you started?
4.
4 years old? Mm-hmm. Oh, really? What was your first record?
As she got older, Gladys's talent became clear to everyone around her. She had a beautiful voice and a strong passion for music. By the time she was 8 years old, she was already winning singing awards. A special moment in her early life happened during her brother Bubba's 10th birthday party. The record player they were using for music broke, so Gladys, her brothers, sister, and cousins decided to entertain the guests by singing themselves. They impressed everyone with their voices, and their talent was obvious to everyone in the room. Gladys's mother was so moved that she suggested they form a singing group.
What was your first record?
Every beat of my heart.
How old were you then?
I ain't telling you.
Okay. I was going to count it up.
The group decided to call themselves the Pips, named after one of their cousins. They started performing together and quickly became popular. People loved their sound, and it wasn't long before they were recording songs and performing in different places. Eventually, they changed the group's name to Gladys Knight and the Pips, with Gladys as the lead singer. The group found a lot of success, and their songs started to get radio play, which helped them reach even more fans. The Pips performed at church, talent shows, and clubs, opening for popular acts, then signed with Brunswick Records and began releasing singles. After a few lineup changes, the group debuted their first album in 1960 when Knight was just 16. By then, she had recorded 5 songs and released her first hit single, Every Beat of My Heart. The group's success was later halted by Knight's departure to start a family with husband.
And we kind of grew together, and he did have that music right here and right here.
Gladys faced many painful and challenging moments, especially in her personal life. When Gladys was just 15 years old, she experienced a terrifying incident at home. She narrowly escaped an attempted assault, a memory that stayed with her and shaped her as a person. At 16, Gladys found herself pregnant and decided to marry her high school boyfriend, James Jimmy Newman, who was also a musician from Atlanta. This was back in 1960, and Gladys was ready to start a family and share a life with him. Sadly, life didn't go as smoothly as she had hoped. While she was on tour, Gladys suffered a miscarriage, losing her first baby. This was heartbreaking for her, especially as a young mother-to-be. Despite this painful loss, Gladys continued to stay strong. Later on, she and Jimmy welcomed their first child, a son named James Gaston Newman. They were thrilled to be parents, and Gladys tried to balance her love for music with her responsibilities as a mother.
So he's living the life. He's come to know.
When Gladys was around 20 years old, things began to get harder. Jimmy developed serious issues with substance use, which affected his behavior and made their home life difficult. Over time, his struggles became more severe, and he eventually left Gladys and their son behind. This was a challenging time for Gladys, but she chose to step away from her music career to focus on raising her child. She stopped touring with her group, the Pips, who continued performing on their own, while Gladys focused on providing a stable life for her son. Even though times were tough, Gladys and Jimmy had one more child together, a daughter named Kenya Maria Newman. With 2 children to care for, Gladys knew she needed to find a way to support her family. Her love for music called her back, so she started recording and performing again with the Pips. They were doing well in the music world, so it was a way for Gladys to pursue her passion and support her family at the same time. Later on, Gladys, Jimmy, and the Pips moved to Detroit, hoping for a fresh start and better opportunities. Unfortunately, their marriage troubles continued. They went through a long separation, lasting 7 years. Finally, in 1973, Gladys made the difficult decision to divorce Jimmy. It was a hard choice, but she knew it was the best for her and her children. Tragically, Jimmy passed away a few years after their divorce. Despite all the pain and struggles, Gladys found the strength to keep going.
Stood by your side through all your ups and downs.
After her first marriage ended, she found love again with Barry Hankerson, a music producer known for managing stars like Toni Braxton and Aaliyah. Gladys and Barry married in 1974, and soon after, they welcomed a son named Shanga in 1976. But the marriage didn't last long. 5 years down the line, the couple was headed for a rough divorce, and things turned ugly, especially when it came to deciding who would care for their son. The divorce was a tough and painful experience for both Gladys and Barry. They fought hard in court, with both wanting custody of Shanga. Gladys eventually won custody, but the whole process was very stressful for their young son. This tough period had a deep effect on Shanga, who developed an eating disorder during that time. Divorce can be hard on children, and Shanga's struggle was a clear sign of how hard this period was for him. As if the divorce and custody battle weren't enough, Gladys also faced a terrifying experience when Shanga was kidnapped at just 3 years old. This was a mother's worst nightmare. Gladys did everything she could to bring him back safely, even spending about $1 million in the process. This showed her strong love and determination as a mother. She never gave up on her son, and this experience made her even stronger, though it was incredibly painful. However, in recent years, Shanga Hankerson also became a topic of concern due to his legal troubles. Sadly, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison for not paying payroll taxes when he owned a restaurant called Gladys Knight's Chicken and Waffles, which he started back then.
The son of R&B singer Gladys Knight has been sentenced to serve 2 years in prison for failing to withhold payroll taxes for restaurants he opened in the Atlanta and Washington, D.C. areas.
Shanga was accused of failing to pay over $1 million in payroll taxes from 2012 to 2016. The IRS pointed out that he should have paid these taxes to help fund important programs like Social Security and Medicare. After pleading guilty to the charges, a judge sentenced him to prison and ordered him to pay restitution of over $1 million. The U.S. attorney made it clear that failing to pay taxes is a serious matter, and all employers must follow the rules. Gladys Knight also faced challenges because of her son's actions. At one point, she removed her name from his restaurant business after discovering he was accused of stealing. Shanga fought back, claiming his mother didn't have the mental capacity to terminate their licensing agreement. Although Gladys didn't run the business, she allowed Shanga to use her name. Their relationship became strained when the IRS accused Shanga of theft and tax evasion. This led to Gladys suing her son and his company. Their licensing agreement lasted for 10 years. But after noticing Shanga's behavior was harming her reputation, Gladys wanted to end it. Shanga denied all allegations and claimed he had paid her for using her name in his restaurants. In the middle of these legal troubles, Shanga allegedly tried to use personal information about Gladys to his advantage. When she refused to give in, a judge ruled in her favor. Gladys said that her son's lawyer threatened to make her Alzheimer's diagnosis public if she didn't comply. She denied any claims about her mental health, stating that her son was trying to embarrass her. Gladys also faced personal loss. Her other son, Jimmy Newman III, passed away at the young age of 36 from heart failure. He had managed her career and was a beloved family member. Gladys tried to find happiness and love once again in 1995 when she married Les Brown, a motivational speaker known for his inspiring talks. At first, Gladys thought Les was the one she had been waiting for. She called him a dream come true and loved the way he could lift people's spirits. Les also encouraged her to write her life story, which led to her successful autobiography and a big book deal worth $500,000. Despite these good moments, their marriage also had its struggles. After just 2 years, Les filed for divorce. Gladys later shared that even though Les was great at motivating others, he didn't know how to truly give in a relationship. Their marriage ended, but she learned a lot from it. She believed that challenges, like the ones she faced in love, were there to teach her important life lessons. She once said, "If we didn't have those things in our life, how would we learn anything?" Through it all, she remained dedicated to her family and her music, proving that even when life is hard, you can find a way to keep shining.
And when I got involved in my gambling, even though I wasn't hiding it, the casino is a very public thing, but when I talked about that, that seemed to be something that people couldn't relate to as far as being a part of my life.
One of her biggest struggles was with a gambling addiction that lasted over 10 years. Gladys, who grew up in Atlanta, was familiar with the city's lively nightlife and gambling culture. Later, she moved to Detroit, where her music career took off, as earlier mentioned. And Detroit also had a big casino scene. It was there that a fellow musician introduced her to blackjack, and she quickly became hooked on the game. What started as a fun activity soon turned into a serious problem. As her addiction grew, Gladys found herself spending more time in casinos than anywhere else. In her 1997 autobiography, she described the casino as a place where she felt safe. The pit bosses and dealers became like family to her, and she felt protected in that environment. At first, the special treatment she received in the casino made her feel good, like she was important. But over time, her gambling started to control her life. Gladys began to lose a lot of money at the tables, playing games like blackjack and baccarat. She would spend all her money at the casino, chasing wins that rarely came. When she finally realized how much money she was losing, she knew things had to change. It wasn't just about the money, it was also about her time. By this point, Gladys was a mother, and she was spending more time in casinos than with her children. One morning in the 1980s, after a long night at the casino, Gladys woke up late and realized she had forgotten to take her son to school. This moment hit her hard. It opened her eyes to the fact that gambling was affecting her family. She also remembered times when she had lost huge amounts of money, $45,000 or even $60,000 in one night. Feeling lost and desperate, Gladys knew she couldn't continue this way. She decided to get help and started attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings. These meetings helped her break free from her addiction, allowing her to focus again on her family and her music career.
Oh, say can you see?
Years later, in 2019, Gladys faced another big challenge during Super Bowl 53. The NFL was under fire because of how it treated black players, especially after quarterback Colin Kaepernick lost his job for protesting racial injustice by kneeling during the national anthem.
Quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick says the league colluded to keep him off the field the past 2 years following his sideline protest beginning in 2016.
The Super Bowl that year was held in Atlanta, and Gladys was invited to sing the national anthem. While she was excited, many fans were disappointed, feeling that by performing, she wasn't standing up for the black community. Some fans left comments on her social media, with one saying, "Love you, but I'm disappointed." Gladys decided to respond by explaining her decision. She acknowledged Kaepernick's protest and his message about racial injustice. Gladys hoped her performance of the anthem would bring people together and remind them of the importance of justice and equality. She said, "I pray that this national anthem will bring us all together in a way never before witnessed." Even though some people didn't agree, Gladys stood by her choice to perform, saying that her singing the anthem was not meant to be disrespectful. Gladys Knight and the Pips joined Motown Records in 1966, bringing their unique sound to one of the most famous record labels in America. Motown, known for its talented lineup of artists like Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, and Marvin Gaye, helped shape soul music and bring it to a huge audience. Gladys Knight and the Pips were excited to join this musical family, but their time at Motown wasn't always smooth. Gladys Knight later shared some interesting and surprising stories from that time.
We all were dressing in one dressing room. Me, the Pips, and the band, and everybody. And they had dressing rooms lined up for her and the Supremes, right? So we didn't care about that. We're not drama like that, you know?
In their early days at Motown, Gladys Knight and the Pips were chosen to tour as the opening act for Diana Ross and the Supremes. This was a big deal for the group. Diana Ross and the Supremes were already big stars, and it was a chance for Gladys Knight and the Pips to perform in front of large crowds and gain new fans. They would sing their hearts out, with Gladys giving a soulful, powerful performance that left the crowd cheering.
And by the time we came off the stage, our little road manager came back and said, "Mr. Gordy would like to speak to you."
Uh-oh, you know what that means?
But this strong response from the crowd started to cause a bit of trouble. According to Gladys Knight's memoirs, Diana Ross wasn't happy with how the audience reacted to her performances. The crowd's cheers and enthusiasm for Gladys Knight and the Pips were often so loud and excited that it started to overshadow Diana Ross's own performances. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. As the headliner, Diana Ross expected to get the most applause and attention. As Gladys shared in her book, Diana Ross eventually had her kicked off the tour. She felt that Gladys Knight was taking too much of the spotlight, and that was not okay in her eyes. Gladys was disappointed, of course, but she kept her head up and focused on her music. Berry Gordy later spoke to Gladys about the incident. He told her that she was giving his act a hard time. Gordy was proud of Gladys Knight and the Pips for doing so well with the audience, but he was also aware that it was causing tension with Diana Ross, who was one of Motown's biggest stars at the time. Gordy needed to keep Diana happy because she was central to Motown's success. It was a tough situation for him, as he respected both artists.
"Well, I see you out there, I've said my act." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, you're giving me a little hard time, right?" I said, "Not that I know of."
What did that mean?
That meant that we weren't supposed to be doing as well as we were doing.
Well, that's not how Knight recalled the incident. "We got a call from Mr. Gordy saying, 'Well, I hear you're spoiling my act, the Supremes,'" Gladys revealed. "Well, Mr. Gordy, that's not what we're about, you know? We're just doing our show." Then Gladys said, "Barry gave her and the Pips the boot from the tour without warning. He said, 'Well, I think you guys should just come on back home tomorrow.' So we went back home, and that was the name of that game," recalled Gladys Knight. When asked if Diana Ross was ever mean to her, Gladys replied, "Well, I'm not a liar. I know that she wasn't the happiest with me. Let me put it like that." However, Gladys and the Pips made a big decision. They left Motown Records and signed a new deal with Buddha Records. This move changed everything for them. That same year, they released some of their biggest hits, like Midnight Train to Georgia, which went all the way to #1 on both the pop and R&B charts. These songs kept the group's success going strong.
He's leaving on that midnight train.
Even though the group was already popular in the United States, they found even more success in Europe, especially in the United Kingdom. Some of their Buddha Records singles became hits in the UK several years after they were first released in the US. As the 1970s came to an end, legal issues caused the group to record separately for a while. This led to Gladys Knight releasing her first solo albums. Knight signed a new deal with Columbia Records and reunited with the Pips. They began releasing new music and worked with producers Nicholas Ashford and Valerie Simpson on their first 2 albums for Columbia. In 1983, Gladys and the Pips had another big hit with the song "Save the Overtime." It reached #1 on the R&B chart, making it their first R&B #1 hit since. Knight broke up with the Pips due to bad blood within the group, including Knight's belief that her brother was exploiting their music to further his business interests. After a successful tour in 1988, the Pips retired, and Knight officially began her solo career. Knight had an amazing solo career that kept growing even while she was still performing with her group, the Pips. She joined forces with big stars like Dionne Warwick, Stevie Wonder, and Elton John to record the song "That's What Friends Are For." This song was for AIDS awareness and quickly became a major hit, reaching #1. Won and winning a Grammy. Gladys appeared in a special show on HBO called Sisters in the Name of Love, sharing the stage with Dionne Warwick and Patti LaBelle. This show earned multiple awards. A few years later, she performed the song "America the Beautiful" at WrestleMania 4, bringing her powerful voice to a whole new crowd. Gladys recorded the title song for the James Bond movie License to Kill. This song became a top hit in the UK and Germany. Then she released her third solo album, Good Woman, which reached #1 on the R&B charts. One of the popular songs from this album was Superwoman, which she sang with Dionne Warwick and Patti LaBelle. This song even got nominated for a Grammy. Gladys kept recording albums and performing in major events. Her fourth solo album, Just For You, went gold and was nominated for a Grammy in 1995. In 2000, her fifth solo album, At Last, won her first solo Grammy. Gladys also worked with a choir, Saints Unified Voices, and directed them. She joined other music stars for a big concert on VH1 to support music education. Throughout the 2000s, she performed in various charity events, such as Divas with Heart, with Chaka Khan, Diana Ross, and others. By 2014, she had made her mark as one of the greatest women in rock music, showing her timeless talent and her dedication to respecting herself and her audience. And did I mention that after 3 marriages, Gladys finally found love? In 2001, she married William McDowell, and they are still together today. Gladys has shared her views on love, saying, "Love is what makes the world go around." I know it's a big cliche to use, but it is the absolute truth. There is nothing else like it. She believes love is what everyone is looking for in their relationships and lives. William McDowell is 14 years her junior and helps manage her career.
She wanted to go back to, she said she's been doing this for decades, and it's always been unfair with the way they do African-American businesses.
She has also sung on a single he released, and they are helping build a community center through their charity. Gladys says, "He's the love of my life. When I first saw him, I said, 'Ooh, he's really cute. He's my manager.' A lot of people can't work with their other half. You've got to have that respect and lift each other up. He's brought me such a, it sounds like a song, but a mighty long way. He does the business side and I do the creative. We see eye to eye. He loves music and sometimes does it better than I do. He comes on tour too." Does she wish she had met him years earlier? Laughing heartily, she says, "I wish I could have. I wish I should have. All those things. He's amazing. Sometimes it takes a lifetime to find your true love." Between them, the couple have 27 grandchildren and great-grandchildren to keep them busy. Gladys Knight continues to be a legend.